The apocalypse begins, and the four horsemen ride out leading an army that will depopulate Earth. But the old pagan deities of Earth do not consent and side with humanity. Our gods met the horsemen out on the road of the world. You will see the road only twice in your life, and you only have the privilege of remembering it once. First when you are born, and at last when you die. The road is a silver ribbon spun among the stars, linking our world to the next, to the hazy realm of the spirits, the domain of the dead and undying. The horsemen have waited centuries for this day. The four led their procession, Famine upon her black horse, whose sharp bones jutted through its skin, War, whose blood-muzzled horse stamped hungrily at the sky road, Conquest, his golden crown dented and ancient. And last of them was the pale rider, unsmiling, unspeaking, Death, the one whose voice a man only hears in his last moments. They rose with blood-blackened armor, and an army of the restless dead behind them, bones upon bones, swords upon swords, death upon death. The army of death surged forward like a sea. They fluted the road and marveled down below, where the human world waited, blue and twinkling, and reedy at long last to be plucked and consumed. The road between the worlds has only one guard, and he stood there alone as the army of skeletons approached. Heimdall stood in his crimson armor, his golden horn cradled in his hands, as it always was. When the end of the world neared, he would finally raise the horn blow into it for the first time, signaling that soon the wolf would devour the sky at last. But the horn did not touch Heimdall's lips, even as war marched toward him. Alone, he stared down the rising army. There was no fear in the god's eyes. He stared unflinching as the horde of undead stormed the road between the worlds. And then the army stopped only a few dozen feet away. Heimdall had watched them for miles, tracking the hungry gleam in the dead soldiers' eyes. Conquest's horse stamped and snorted impatiently. But only Death strode forward. Even its horse moved silently, like wind over rock, like nothing at all. And Death, shrouded in its white cloth, had a face like a pale mask, empty, emotionless. Death cocked its head and said in a voice that felled empires, "Now of all times you find yourself alone. I am never alone." Death gestured around at the empty space on either side of them, the numberless stars, the oblivious billions below. "Your comrades have deserted you." Heimdall spat onto the road and looked Death over with an immutable calm. He answered, "No, they have surprised you." Death whirled to see a single black raven rise up over the army. The raven met Death's eye with an intelligence sharp as any blade. For the first time, emotion flooded Death's terrible face. It looked afraid. The gods had come out. They surged up from beneath the road, crawling out like beetles, like a swarm. They had never worked as one like this. The denizens of Asgard, Olympus, Duat, and Dilmun, and all the scattered images of heaven and hell had come together that day to save the only world that gave their own meaning. And there was Odin at their head, bearing the spear of heaven, his single eye red and raving. The gods fell upon the army of the dead.